This is the easiest way you're going to build connections with people. And I promise you, it's so simple. You're going to be able to have a conversation with almost anybody if you can just follow these steps. You'll be able to create genuine connections with anybody if you just learn how to talk to people and have endless conversations. You have to understand that when you're having a conversation with somebody, first you want to understand what type of conversation are you guys having. So when you're talking to somebody, you have to discover what conversation are we about to have. Is it a conversation where we have to make a decision together? Is it a conversation where the other person just wants to be heard and feel some empathy? Or they just want to talk for real? First, you have to figure out what type of conversations the person wants to have. And how do you do that? You have to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the person questions, but not just any questions. You have to ask open-ended questions. You have to ask questions to where people would just tell you what they want to talk about. The easiest way to know what type of questions to ask, look at nonverbal cues, look at their body language, listen to their tone of voice, how they're talking to you. And while you're asking questions, you want to put yourself in their perspective of whatever they're going through. So once you figure out what type of conversation that person wants to have, then you can go off of asking questions. I'll give you an example. So when you really want to create a genuine connection with somebody, first you want to make them feel like safe. You want to make them feel safe enough to express themselves, because sometimes having a conversation and you trying to build that meaningful conversation, it will put the other person in a vulnerable situation to express themselves. Because in order to create a genuine connection, you have to ask questions relating to that other person's desires. What do they really want out of life? You want to figure out how does that person see the world, you know? You don't want to just ask random questions. Like, even if it's a random question, you'll figure out if they really want to talk about that by their body language. So if you talk about someone's job, right? You want to ask good questions about the job, like, okay, what's one of your favorite memories about working your job? And then they'll tell you, and you'll go off of their body language, their tone of voice, how they're talking to you. And then you don't want to ask a bunch of questions like you're giving an interview. You want to have it go back and forth. So if you ask a question, you want to follow that question up with some of your own personal experiences, some of your own, desires that you have in life. What are your goals in life? This is how you have a back and forth conversation to where it won't be dry. You won't figure out what else do I need to talk about, because you can always ask questions. You can always ask a question, but you want to have meaningful questions. You don't want to just keep talking, because I guarantee you, if you're the one that's just talking, that's like, you're not creating no mystery about yourself. Like, that person is just going to think you're boring. They're going to think that you talk too much about yourself. You never want to just always talk about yourself. You want to have the conversation more focused on them, but you're going to keep following up with some of your own experiences and stuff like that. But understand that it's really easy to have conversations with people, but you got to really want to figure out how do I get better at talking to people? Like, once you figure out how to get better at talking to people, I promise you, it's going to be so easier to connect with somebody, because you already know the type of conversation they want to have. If it's a conversation that they need a solution, then y'all can figure out a solution together. You're going to ask questions and you're going to figure out, okay, how can I come up with a solution with this person? They might not even want a solution. Maybe they just want some empathy and be heard. First, you got to ask yourself before the conversation even starts, does this person want to be helped? Does this person want to be heard? Or does this person want to be hugged? Once you figure out what type of conversation this person wants to have, it'll be easier to ask the questions that you need to ask to figure out how to create a genuine connection. And like I said, when you ask about somebody's personal goals or the desires that they have in life, or even their background, these are things that's gonna open up a person But you have to be in that position of where you can have that person open up to you about their childhood, about their background, what happened to their life. Because I guarantee you, if you make a person feel safe and secure in the conversation y'all having, I promise you, they're gonna open up about their childhood. What do they want out of life? How do they see the world? What the perspective they see the world? These are things you want to have, like you want them to tell you about, because that's the easiest way you're gonna build connections. You're not just have meaningless conversations. You asking the right questions to get them vulnerable enough to express what they truly value in life. And then you gonna follow up with what you value in life and your personal experiences. I promise you, if you can do this, this will be the easiest way to build a connection, because that person will always remember the conversation you had. It wasn't a meaningless conversation, but you gotta also remember you have to match energy at a conversation. If you know a person wants to be heard and have empathy, but you're trying to cheer them up like it's okay, it's gonna be okay, that's not the right thing to do, bro. They don't want you to try to cheer them up if they're down. They want you to match their energy. And how do you do that? You literally, if they're sad, or I'm not saying you gotta be all sad, but you can give feedback on something that you was going through when you was at a time of need or when you was down. So if you know a person is feeling some type of way, then you match their energy. You know what I'm saying? You match their tone of voice, you match their body language a little bit, and express to them that I was going through the same thing you was going through at one point in my life, and you share that experience. And then they're gonna be like, wow, like I'm not alone in this. You know what I'm saying? He's really listening to what I have to say, and he understands what I'm going through, instead of you just saying, you know, it's gonna be okay, you know, it's gonna be another day. Nobody wants to hear that shit, bro. You have to understand what type of conversation the person wants to have, because you might be thinking, I could solve this person's salute, like I can help this person, I could solve their solution. But that's not what they looking for. They just want you to be there and listen to them so they can be heard and show some bit of empathy. And I promise you, when you can discover the different type of conversations each person is having, it'll be so much easier for you to just create that meaningful connection. But like I said, you have to read their body language. You have to put yourself in their perspective. Don't just always think about the next thing you're gonna say in a conversation, because that's what people do, especially when they're like on a date or with their girl or something, or a girl they just met. They're thinking, what do I gotta say? I don't want it to just be dry. But don't always think about that. Really just focus on what they want to talk about. And like I said, keep asking questions, ask personal questions, but get them to a state to where they'll tell you the questions that you're asking. And I promise you, you'll easily be able to create these meaningful connections with anybody, bro, because everybody wants to be heard. Everybody, for a chance, wants to, you know, be hugged in a sense. And everybody wants to, you know what I'm saying, be helped when they need to. So you have to understand these things, bro. Like, don't think that don't ever think going into a conversation that you know what this person wants to talk about. Never do that. You have to just sit back, listen. You have to listen as much as you're talking, because when you're listening, you can really understand what that person is going through, what they need out of you in the conversation. And once you realize, oh, this person needs to be helped, oh, this person needs to be heard, oh, this person just needs a hug, then that'll be the easiest thing you can do. It'll be the easiest thing you can do. But we be fucking it up because we be so in our head about what do we need to talk about. I don't want it to be dry. Like what else do I talk about? Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm gonna keep saying it. Don't be afraid to ask fucking questions. But like I said, it just has to be the right questions, because if you keep asking questions, they're gonna keep telling you about what they want out of the conversation. And that's literally it, bro. If you can understand that, I promise you, you'll create so many meaningful conversations, so many meaningful connections with people, to where they'll walk away from a conversation being like, wow, like that person really just made me feel calmer. Like I could easily just talk to that person. You want to be that type of person to where, if that's what you want, if you want to, you know what I'm saying, build up your conversation skills, build up your social skills with people, you want them to walk away from the conversation with you thinking, wow, that person really heard what I had to say, or that person really helped me out. Like, I just felt so much calmer, so much at peace after talking to that person. You can get like that, bro. It's just gonna take some time. It's just really gonna take some time and some energy to figure out, how do I create meaningful conversations with people. And once you get that, bro, the sky's the limit for you. I'm telling you, because the best thing you can do is know how to communicate. You can lack the talent, you can lack skills on whatever you know want to do, but if you know how to communicate with somebody, they'll give you the leeway on the skills that you're lacking. If you just know how to use your mouthpiece and learn how to create a conversation that people want to talk about. And that's it, man. If you really want to, you know what I'm saying, build these connections with people, you have to get out of your way. You have to not be so focused on you and focus on the other person and what do they really want out of life. Because if you really, I'm telling you, if you really talk about somebody's background, their childhood, what are their goals in life, what are they what desires that they have, and they're comfortable enough to tell you, they're never, I promise you, they won't forget about you. Because not a lot of people are having conversations like that. Not a lot of people understand the type of questions to ask someone to really get in tune with them, to really match their energy, for someone to be like, damn, like, I ain't never really had somebody ask me these type of questions. Or I ain't never really had someone have a conversation like this. Like, I just felt like we just built the connection. That's what you want the person to say. Like, even if y'all just met, you could just meet somebody. Like, I've done that before. Just met somebody and they just like, wow, like, I really enjoyed this conversation with you, because I knew what type of questions to ask, because I knew what type of conversation we was about to have, and I asked the right questions that made them want to talk even more. And I wasn't so caught up in talking about myself, but I also followed up with personal experiences relating to what they were talking about. And when you can get that, bro, I promise you, it's so easy to have conversations, and you will be able to create meaningful conversations with the girl you like, your boss at work, anybody, bro. I'm telling you.